Chapter 5. The True Horror. But as the townspeople embraced in celebration, a haunting wail pierced the air, cutting through the joy like a knife. Sarah's daughter, orphaned and alone in the crowd, collapsed to her knees, her cries of anguish echoing through the square. Thomas rushed to her side, his heart heavy with sorrow. "What is it, child? What troubles you in this moment of victory?" he asked, his voice filled with compassion. Through tear-filled eyes, the young girl pointed a trembling finger towards the sky. "Look," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the din of the crowd. As the townspeople turned their gaze upwards, their faces contorted in horror. They saw the true devastation that had befallen their town. The killer air, banished from the earth, had taken to the heavens, a swirling vortex of darkness descending upon them with a vengeance. The vortex spiraled downwards with a malevolent force, dark tendrils snaking through the air, reaching out to grasp the townspeople. The first to be consumed was Mr. Peterson. His scream cut short as his body was lifted into the air, flesh tearing from bone as the dark tendrils pulled him apart. Blood rained down on the square, painting the cobblestones in a grisly red. Panic erupted, but there was nowhere to run. Mrs. Caldwell tried to shield her grandson, but the air itself seemed to turn against them, forcing its way into their lungs. They choked and gasped, eyes bulging in terror as they suffocated. Her grandson's tiny body convulsed before going limp, his life snuffed out in an instant. The vortex continued its rampage, engulfing groups of people, their bodies disintegrating into ash as they were pulled into the swirling darkness. Emily and Robert, standing close to Thomas, screamed as their skin blistered and peeled away, their bones exposed before they crumbled into dust. Their agonized cries blended into a cacophony of horror that echoed through the night. Thomas clutched Sarah's daughter to his chest, trying to shield her from the encroaching darkness. The child's breath grew shallow, her tiny body trembling as the icy air wrapped around them. She looked up at him, eyes wide with fear, her lips turning blue as the killer air seeped into her lungs. She coughed violently, blood spraying from her mouth, her small body racked with spasms until she fell limp in Thomas's arms. The tendrils reached Thomas next, wrapping around his legs and arms, pulling him towards the vortex. He could feel his flesh being torn, his bones snapping under the pressure. Pain unlike anything he had ever imagined surged through him, and he let out a final, guttural scream. In his last moments, he whispered a prayer, a desperate plea for mercy that went unanswered. The vortex grew in size, consuming buildings and trees, tearing through the town with unstoppable fury. The screams of the townspeople echoed through the night, their cries of despair drowned out by the howling wind that carried their souls away into the void. The town was left in ruins, the ground littered with the remnants of what was once a thriving community. As the darkness closed in around them, the last traces of life in the town were snuffed out. The final sound was the howling of the wind, carrying with it the echoes of lost souls. Ultimately, the town was no more, its legacy a tragic tale of hope extinguished in the face of unimaginable darkness, leaving behind only an eerie silence and the faint, lingering scent of death.